Today we're going to have a conversation with Jabari Edwards. He is the founder of J5GBL. It is an environmental consulting and an environmental justice firm, but they have diversified and they do many, many things. And he's going to tell us his story of starting and maintaining and growing a minority-owned business in Mississippi. Jabari, thank you for your time.
Jeffrey, thank you for having me.
So take us back. Tell us a bit about yourself, because what little I know about the company, you can't really understand the company without understanding your story and you growing up and your father. So just please take us through that.
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey. Well, I grew up in Columbus, Mississippi. My father, Joe Edwards, was the first African-American city councilman here in the city. But prior to being a city councilman, he was an entrepreneur. And even throughout that time, he still kept his entrepreneurial spirit and he kept trying to start and grow his business. But back then, my father actually sued the city to change the way they conducted elections. And so, of course, when you sue the city and you're an African-American male, at the time, you couldn't go out and do banking outside of the city. You couldn't go out and really grow networks because, just the issue that has been paramount, and I guess you can say on the forefront for African Americans throughout time, is that we don't have that social network. And that just exacerbates the other problem that we don't have access to capital. And so I watched him and I watched his businesses fail. And so eventually he ended up working with Parks and Recs until his time to retire. But me watching him coming up, it planted a seed in me. And I was able to learn a lot by watching my father. But the main thing that I was able to watch and learn and ascertain from my father was just his genuine love for people. He never, even up until his dying day, he never backed down from his thought that everybody should be treated like they're somebody. He would always tell me, never look up to any man, never look down on any man, because on any given day, it could be you. And so my father was my hero. He was my role model. He's my hero, my best friend. And so when he passed suddenly the way he did, it left a hole in my heart. It left a hole in my whole entire model, because, he was also my concierge, so to speak, my advisor. So I ran everything by him, and he was somebody that I knew I could genuinely trust, because I knew he had my best interests at heart. And so it left me scrambling, and I thank God that I had a strong wife to stand in the gap, my kids, and also, a social network that had started to, I had started to build on my own. And so that social network was there to support me and has been there to support me ever since. And so that has been paramount to my success. But I tell everybody that you can't tell my story without telling his story. And that's why at my father's funeral, I told him, as long as I live, he'll never die, because I will live every day to make him proud and to keep his name living on. And that's why, my name is actually Jabari Obana Edwards, and my initials actually spell his name. And so every time I sign Jabari O. Edwards, and I honor him in everything I do.
So what was your first business? What did you do?
My first business was actually the insurance business. So when I got out here, I had my financial advisor had talked to me about the insurance business and had been talking to me about it for years. And so finally, when I decided to step out on faith and step out in the entrepreneurial market, which is actually 21 years ago now. It was January 1, 2000, my first day in business. I got in the insurance business, and because, again, didn't have a social network, and it was tough, Jeffrey, back then, when you were the mayor. I actually came to you and shared that with you, how tough it was. And so from there, I started a construction firm as well. And then the insurance side continued to grow even more. In 2007, I bought a firm from Wells Fargo, bought a percentage of it, and I took that company national in 2008, landed clients like MGM Grand, U.S. Secretary of State, and other commercial clients. But the insurance business didn't it didn't do what I need to do as far as my passion and my why and for the reason I got out here in business. So when I got started in business, the thing that inspired me to get started in business was when I was working at a juvenile detention center. I saw a young black male who, for no fault of his own, got sent to a foster home down in Jackson. And this young kid got fight one night during a game. He got kicked out of the game. He got kicked out of home. He brought back and placed in the center. Home, he had to go in the center. But then I saw a young whose grandfather was very wealthy and very influential here in town, and he had committed some more egregious acts. And I saw him serve a weekend. And at that point, I think that's when the switch flipped for me, because that's when I started paying attention to the lay of the land throughout the state of Mississippi. And I realized that while we had Black elected officials, we didn't really have Black power. And the thing that creates power is wealth. So that's when I made the decision that I wanted to get out here and I wanted to build a firm that was bigger than myself. And so that's why J5 was born some years later into my endeavor, because J5 would allow me to create this organization where I could cultivate Black talent, whether it be male, female, whether it be convicted felons that have served their debt to society, whether it be young people coming up and they would have a place that they could aspire to work to and go to college and work to. And so that's when I started growing out J5.
When did you realize that politics and business were intertwined, especially in Mississippi?
Well, Jeffrey, one of the things that my father did when I was coming up as a child, he always made me study whoever the greatest was that did it. So whether it was soccer or chess or the swim team, he always made me read a book on whoever the greatest was. And so as I got started, I started reading the life stories of some of those that had come before me. And I always noticed there was that overlap of the relationships with key elected officials who were committed to bringing about a change and committed to diversity, and how these guys actually help look up to the H. Gastons, the Russell Lewis's, the R.J. Russells. Always an intertwine of politics in there. And so for me, part of my path, so to speak, has been not trying to recreate the wheel. It's been to study the greats that have come before me and try to emulate some of the things that they did. And so in doing that, and also, again, having my father there to guide me, it was understanding that there's politics in everything that you do. And with the right politics comes the right network. And for me, a strong social network is even stronger than sometimes just having access to capital and having the money. Because if you don't have access to the client base and ways to go and introduce yourself and your services or your product, that money will eventually dry up. I would look at it like a pond that's full right now and full of water. But if you don't have something, some way to continue to put water into that pond, regardless of how big it is, it's going to eventually evaporate. And that's why a strong political and social network is so important if you're going to grow in business, especially if your plans is for that business to exceed past the level of mom and pop and to be here when you're going to have generational sustainability. There has to be some social networking, and in America and one of the best forms of social networking is politics, and especially here in Mississippi.
And you raised some eyebrows because early on you spoke at a rally on the campus of the Mississippi University for Women. It was a rally for candidate Haley Barbour running for governor. And at the time, the Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, was also at that event. And you were on the program, and you've got up and apparently just spoke from the heart. And a lot of folks said, well, what is this? What is this young man doing? But that was a calculated step on your part.
Yes. You know, I remember when I got that request from Haley, I was torn because I had always been affiliated with the Democratic Party all my life because of my dad. But I had that conversation with my dad, and I sought his blessing, and he actually advised me that in life you can do a lot of things, but you will have a few chances in your life to build relationships that can help propel you. And so he advised me to give the speech, and I called and said that I would do it. And so for me, one of the things that my dad always taught me, don't get enamored by the money. I always value the relationship and the favors that come up as a part of it. And I have been a benefactor of some of my relationships, and granted, you have to put in the work, and you have to make sure that you're educated about whatever field you're in. But for me, making that step out with Haley was a step that I was criticized for here locally. And people want to label you as a Black Republican. Everybody wants you to wear a label, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent. But I've always told people I march to the beat of my own drum, and I will always choose to get to know the man and ride with the man that I know and the person I'm comfortable with, especially if there's a relationship. I have become that person in my life to where, I can't be bullied. My dad raised me that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a man only dies once. And so when a man stands on his principle, the worst thing they can do is kill you. And so you just have to be willing to stand on that. And that's what I did with Haley. And one of the things that I did with Haley also before I committed to that, at the time, Columbus was a heavy furniture industry sector here in Columbus. And so we were losing jobs left and right. And I remember asking Haley that if he did become governor, would he support Columbus and our economic development efforts? And he gave me his word that he would. And I remembered when Servistall was getting ready to locate here, at the time it was Servicor, and there were some issues down in the Capitol. I actually was able to call on Haley, and he was able to step into the negotiations. And so I don't think that, I was the only benefactor of that relationship. I think it helped our county as a whole. And so I'm grateful for that speech, and I'm grateful for everything that came after it. And so any criticism that comes as a result of it, I'll take it, and I'll say thank you for it.
You took a little bit of a different approach on your strategy. There are some minority-owned businesses that look for that set aside, and I believe you and I had a conversation, and it became, why settle for a slice of the pie? Why not get your own pie? I think that I'm paraphrasing, but I think we actually had that conversation, mm-hmm. And that seems to be an approach that you took with J5, and pretty bold, aggressive move, I would think that many would say.
Jeffrey, one of the things that I think hinders a lot of people when they get out here in business is that, we allow ourselves to be put in a box. And so once you get put in that box, it's hard to get out of it. And so from a lot of minorities, when we get into a lot of these minority programs, back in the day when these programs were set up, they weren't set up for people, by people who had, you know, thought in mind of I'm going to have this country that had a robust African economy. That wasn't a thought. It was a lot of these programs are set up to where you got to almost be in poverty in order to be qualified, and oftentimes you have to partner with a larger firm, and many times those larger firms don't look like us. And so therefore you have a lot of African Americans, when once we get in those programs, we're given the crumbs. We're told, okay, you take your 10%, and we'll do all the work. And so what that does is that limits your ability to build capacity. You don't have a work history that you can put down on your statement of qualifications. You're not able to go out and hire your own staff. So it kills your ability to scale up, and it kills your ability to be sustainable. So one of the things that I told you that, and now I need to retrain my thinking even so as of today, because I watched the movie One Night in Miami, and in watching that movie, I heard Sam Cooke say that everybody talks about they want their own pie, but Sam said, "I want the recipe." And so now I'm of the mindset that I don't even want the pie anymore. I want the recipe, and that's why with J5, it was all about, let's go out, let's make the investment to bring in our own talent. So we brought in our own engineers, our own geologists, our own scientists. We recruited people from larger firms that we used to be subcontractors for. J5 is now headed by, I've stepped away from the day-to-day of J5, and is headed by a lady named Gina Montgomery, who just came over from Black and Veatch, and she was over a multi-billion-dollar portfolio. Now she sits in the president's seat here at J5, and I've sort of transitioned over to J5 Solutions, as a firm that I started with the sole purpose of help building Black wealth. And so that's why now you see that I do the Black Business Spotlight every Friday on my page, and we do other things throughout. We mentor other minority firms. We try to cultivate if that we can invest in some and help out that way. But when you get the recipe and you realize how to make the pie, now you got a thing called scalability. So Jeffrey, we've gone away from wanting the pie that we want the recipe.
Well, let me ask you, how do you, first and foremost, you're a business, so it's got to be about the bottom line. How
Yes.
do you make sure you've got an eye on the bottom line and yet still make sure your corporate culture and your mentoring efforts are where you want them to be? Because those things cost time and they cost money. So how do you strike the balance between profitability and then obviously your personal mission of making sure you give back and build a bridge for others to follow?
That balance, Jeffrey, sometimes is that it creates a burden that sometimes is heavy is hard to bear. Because as a business, you should be focused on the bottom line. But J5 is a family first organization. I tell my people here, if something is going on with your family, I would rather you take care of that, because the work gonna be here when you leave. And another lesson that I learned when my father passed the way he did suddenly in his sleep, I realized that everything else he had in the world was gonna be gone. But as his son, I was gonna always be his son. And so that's the type of organization that I wanted to build, a family first organization that I feel like if we put the right culture in place to where people knew that they worked in an organization, that the organization genuinely cared about them as a person and didn't just look at them as another revenue stream, that in turn they would be willing to maximize the level of effort that they give to the company. And so at J5, I would like to think that the people that are here in the organization, they're committed because they know the organization are committed to them. Now, granted, do we run into times when, it gets tough? It got tough in 2017. This was a COVID year, unexpected, another tough year. But knock on wood, we didn't lay anybody off. And you run into those economic challenges, because we're not, a large global firm. We don't have stockholders, the stockholder that you see is me. And so any investment into my organization comes from me. But we're committed to being here long after I'm gone. And the way that you do that is have a culture to where people are committed and people are bought in. And so therefore, during the hard times, they're not so quick to jump off the ship because they know that. And I heard Haley Barber say this one time when he was giving a speech: "A rising tide float all boats." And that's what we try to do here at J5. We make sure that when that tide rises, everybody here rise with it. And so that's why I've always told the people here at J5, none of them work for me; they work with me, and we're a team. A team is only as strong as its weakest link. We hear that often, but that is real. And so that's why we've tried to build a culture here to every individual that comes into this door. They understand that they are part of a family. Someone is going to be there when their family is sick, when when a loved one passed, or when the children graduate. We're going to celebrate. So that's what you have at J5.
Jabari, I'd like to close with asking you what advice you would give to a young person that may be looking to start their own business, particularly a minority business. Looking back, things you have learned, what advice would you give to them?
The first thing I would tell them, Jeffrey, is understand your why. You have to find out what it is that motivates you, what it is that you're going to be passionate about, what it is that, and I have this picture behind my head with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. And the reason I have it is because for me, it's the greatest business lesson of all time, because Ali was going against somebody that was younger, stronger. Everybody in the world thought was going to beat him and thought that Ali didn't have a chance. But Ali put a plan in place and he committed to working that plan. And he knew that there was going to be some time that in order for his plan to work, everybody was going to think he was crazy. And everybody was going to think he was getting killed because he was leaning against the rope. But what he knew he was doing is wearing that opponent down. And so to any young African American that's going to get started in business, I would say, understand your why and understand that it's going to be difficult when you get out here. You don't just go from the bottom to the top without falling several times on your journey. So understand that once you step out on this journey, it won't be easy. Every now and then you have somebody that comes up with a product that may take off. But for the most part, for African Americans over 400 years, it's been a struggle and it's been a battle to not just build a business, but to stay in business. And so I would tell them, be prepared to weather the storm and don't chase money, chase greatness. Because if you chase greatness, money will always chase you. And so if you do all of those things that it takes to be great, hold yourself accountable, make sure you're disciplined, make sure that you're constantly studying your craft, to improve, to make sure that you're the best so that people won't look at you and say, oh, he a black firm. They will say he's a great firm or she has a great company. At that point, then you're ready to survive and make it out here in this game that we call entrepreneurship.
Jabari Edwards, the founder of J5 GBL, thank you for sharing your story with our students, and we wish you continued success. Thank you.
Jeffrey, thank you. And to any student that watched this, I will wish you the best of success, the best of luck on your future endeavors, and know that we're here to support in any way possible.